Alright, this next video, what we want to do is do some Excel work. This is the third video on portfolio strategy, and today we're going to discuss what's called the efficient frontier. The efficient frontier was developed in the late 1950s by Dr. Harry Markowitz, who unfortunately just passed away in mid-2023, but won the Nobel Prize in economics for this theory, very important theory. And what the theory says is if you combine three inputs, three assumptions that I'll talk about here, three assumptions, there is at each point of risk an optimal portfolio. At each point of risk, there is a portfolio that will have the highest expected return at that point of risk. So it is an efficient portfolio. Any portfolio below that would not be efficient because it would have the same level of risk but a lower expected return. You can't find a portfolio above the efficient frontier because it's mathematically impossible. So that efficient frontier is the highest returning portfolio at each point of risk. The three inputs are expected return, so that's a forecast. Expected risk, we use standard deviation as our measure of risk. If you haven't had statistics in a while, you'll have to look up standard deviation. I'm not going to cover it in this series. It is an important number. We use it quite a bit in finance, maybe inappropriately at times because there are some very simplifying assumptions behind standard deviation that might not apply as effectively to what we're trying to do in investing. But it is a fairly standard approach that most wealth managers use. And then expected correlation. I'm going to talk more about standard deviation and correlation in the fourth video because that's really where this theory has some challenges. I'm not saying throw it out, don't use it, but it does definitely have some challenges. So before we get to the challenges in the next video, what we want to do here is just learn the basics. So this is going to be an Excel video where I'm going to show you an Excel file that you can use. If you email me, I'll send it to you. I'm not going into it in detail in this video. I just want to show you the Excel file. If you're interested in building it yourself, then you can email me. I'll send you the file with some YouTube tutorial videos that show you how to use it. So here is the Excel file. It has several parts to it. The one part that we're in right now is called the model. The model is where all the assumptions and all the calculations take place. You can see our three assumptions: return, our expected return for each asset class. We have large cap growth, large cap value, small cap growth, small cap value, developed market, emerging market. The only commodity I have is gold. So this model does not have the other commodities. I'd like to add commodities to this model, but other commodities like energy and agriculture and metals, it's very difficult to get good historical data, especially given that different benchmarks have different allocations between the three segments. So here I'm just using gold. We have bonds. These are investment grade bonds, and then I have high yield bonds. High yield bonds are those below investment grade bonds. I'm not going to go in detail how I came up with these assumptions. I think they're fairly decent assumptions. Obviously, you could debate what you think a stock or bond is going to make going forward. But if you're interested in that, I do have classes where I go into more detail how I came up with assumptions. Also, this Excel spreadsheet actually documents how I came up with those assumptions. Risk or standard deviation is primarily related to long-term history. I'll talk in the next video where that can really be an issue for your reliability in this type of model. But based on history, historically, growth stocks have been more volatile than value stocks. Small company stocks have been more volatile than large company stocks. Developed market stocks have been about as volatile as the United States. Emerging market stocks have been very volatile. Gold and most commodities are much more volatile than the stock market. Bonds are the least volatile, and then high yield is in between stocks and bonds. And then we have correlations. Now for correlations, we have to have a correlation between each asset class and all the others. How is large cap value correlated with all the others? By correlation, we ask if large cap growth is having a good period or a bad period, is large cap value doing the same thing at the same time, Or are they moving in different directions, which means they would be diversifying each other. And so you'll see that I have a correlation between large cap growth and large cap growth, which is 1. Obviously, perfect correlation. That means they move exactly the same because it's the exact same asset class. 1 is the highest correlation can be. -1 is the lowest. So 1 means two things move exactly together. A -1 means things move in opposite directions. When one is doing really well, the other one is doing really badly, and vice versa. You can see between stocks, my correlations are fairly high. Anything above 0.7 is a pretty high correlation, which means we can expect them to move together pretty consistently. Gold has a low correlation. So even though gold is very, very volatile, it tends to do well when stocks are doing badly a lot of times because gold tends to do well during a crisis. Bonds and stocks, we're going to talk more about that in the next video. Over the long term, they've been fairly uncorrelated, but we'll talk about there are times when they're more highly correlated and there are times when they're negatively correlated. We can only have one assumption, so we have to capture it all in one assumption. High yield tends to be highly correlated with stocks. It comes down as a pyramid because I don't need to look at large cap value versus large cap growth because I already did that here with this 0.87. So you'll see this as a typical correlation matrix. So those are my assumptions. There's quite a few of them because correlation has so many different combinations. And in my model, this is when you input everything you need. So if you watch my videos, it shows you how to use this information. So the green is where you actually have the model is working and doing all the calculations. Below the green are the actual formulas. And if you look at these formulas, they're fairly straightforward. It's not that complicated. If you know this basic formula in statistics, all this model is doing is applying that formula for all of the different asset classes. So that is the model. The videos, the tutorial videos show you how to use this model to do the model output. Here's the model output. It shows what current portfolio you started with, your decision on how to set that up. The videos show you how to do that. And then I highlighted two portfolios I was interested in. You'll notice this one right here, it says recommended. It's because the client I had came in, his portfolio had a risk of 15% and expected return of 7.7%. So I asked, could I find a portfolio with that same level of risk that had a higher expected return? And sure enough, I found a portfolio that had a fairly significantly higher return. So that's what this part of the model does. If you want to use this model, you can certainly email me and you can set it up. It takes about 10-15 minutes to run the entire model. It's not that time consuming. And when you do, it gives you these great graphs that shows you how your current allocation was of your current portfolio and what this model is recommending. And then the next sheet is the actual efficient frontier. It shows you, hey, you started with the portfolio here. Here's your risk level. Here's your expected return. So on the y-axis is return. On the x-axis is risk. So we'd like to be as far northwest as possible. But you'll notice as you go east, return goes up, but so does risk. And so you'll notice that you really can't be far northwest because those portfolios just don't exist. There aren't portfolios with really high expected returns with low risk. They just don't exist. However, what we're interested in is, can we take this person's portfolio and change the allocation so we can get them a higher return? The portfolio I'm going to look at is down here as well. So there's two I want to look at. One that's low risk for maybe someone who's only 5 or 10 years away from retirement, and one that's high risk for someone who's maybe in their 20s and are looking at saving over 40, 50 years. So that's how the model works. How do we use this information? What I like to do is put it into a strategy portfolio. I have my strategy, and then I have what I call as tactical. Strategy is my long-term goal. That's what I want to do normal times. Tactical means what I'm doing right now. It might be a little different because I have a strong opinion that something is not going to do well. It might do well over the long term, but in the near term, I don't trust it. So I might have a tactical play where I'm going to go against what the efficient frontier says. Here's my asset classes. Cash, you notice I have 0 in cash because cash is usually not allocated in these models. I have fixed income, investment grade bonds, high yield. You notice on investment grade, I don't break it between short-term, intermediate term, and long-term bonds. I just have one category. On stocks, I have large cap, mid cap, and small cap combined, developed market, and emerging markets. And then I have alternatives. Here the model allocated 0 because I was only using gold. So maybe in the future the model allocate more than just 0%. But there's my portfolio 100%. It has add up to 100% because I need to allocate my money somewhere. My tactical also adds up to 100%. You can see that my fixed income is the same, and this is your biggest decision, is how much you're going to put in stocks and bonds. So my fixed income is almost 60%, and my stocks is about 40%, and that's because this was a portfolio for someone near or in retirement. If I did this for a young person, it would look very, very different. So where am I different than my efficient frontier portfolio? On my bonds, it's exactly the same, except I'm going to extend duration. I'm going to buy longer term bonds versus shorter term bonds. I'm going to keep my quality medium quality. I'm avoiding high yield because I don't think they're paying me enough extra return for their risk right now. On stocks, I'm over allocating the US. I don't trust Europe and emerging countries right now because of some of the crisis going around the world. So I'm going to stick with the US. There are people who argue that the US stock market looks expensive versus other markets. So if you had that opinion, you might actually be under on US stocks and over on developed and emerging stocks. It just depends on your opinion. And then I have some allocation to commodities. I'm going to find a really good commodity fund to allocate to, even though my model said not to, but I want to watch the weight of that fund. I want to make sure it doesn't have too much in energy. I'm not saying I'm recommending this. I'm just saying this is the type of tactical play you might take. And so at any given time, your strategy might be about the same all the time. It may not change much. You might update the efficient frontier with new assumptions, but it's unlikely it's going to change radically. And then on tactical, you just look at what you're seeing in the markets and you make an opinion on where you want to be. So right now in my portfolio, I am overweight value stocks because I think growth stocks are too expensive. That worked really, really well in 2022, but then growth stocks came roaring back in 2023. So I'm sticking with that play because it worked for 1 year, then it unwound, and I still believe value stocks are very inexpensive versus growth stocks. Other people say that may be true, but artificial intelligence still has a way to go. So even though growth stocks look expensive, they may get more expensive until artificial intelligence makes all the extra money it's going to make. So that's how we use Excel to help us build our strategy. And again, email me if you want my Efficient Frontier file to do the various different things you can do using this theory.